If people can come over. Oh, good. If some folks are coming out from our DC Action for Assange group, thank you for being here. We have guests from Florida. We have journalists. We have DC activists. So thank you all for coming out. We have the Women's Institute for Press Freedom here. I want to start with an interesting guest that came on April 11th. My name is Ann Wilcox, by the way. I'm with DC Action for Assange. I'm going to be co-emceeing with Suzanne Murphy of our Boston affiliate here today. We're going to have a couple speakers at each of our stops. We're going to be at the DOJ here. We're going to be at the National Press Club, which has been united in ignoring Assange. They've joined with the CIA and everyone else to ignore Assange's case. We're going to speak to the press club. And then we're going over to the offices of the Washington Post, which has also largely ignored Assange, although they have occasionally said positive things. And our speakers will get into those details. At this stop, we're going to hear, I want first for people, we were here on April 11th, which was the 4th anniversary of Julian Assange being in high security prison, Belmarsh prison, after he spent some 6 years in the Ecuador embassy under asylum. He was then dragged out, and he's now been in pretrial detention, essentially, for 4 years while the U.S. tries to extradite him to the U.S. So on April 11th, we met this very interesting Ukrainian journalist who's with us today.
Where is he? He's not ready yet. He's going to speak at the end.
Okay.
He's going to be, he's preparing his speech.
He's going to prepare and speak for us when he's ready, I guess. He doesn't speak very good English, but he's been sort of threatened over in Ukraine. His name is Ruslan, and I just wanted people to hear his story. So we'll start with Jen Perlman. I don't know if you can come up and just give us some greetings from the Florida Assange. Okay.
I don't have good weather for you people. Hi guys, thank you so much for being so inclusive of me in your event up here. I mean, down in South Florida, we don't always get a good turnout. We don't have the same enthusiasm. And so I really wanted to participate up here. I have been actively advocating against how Julian's been being treated for, it feels like 15 years now. And this is something that I have been saying since the very beginning is a lot bigger than most people understand. And it really is this like death of part of our First Amendment at this point, which I know that a lot of us are seeing in a lot of different ways all over the place. We're seeing it, we all know we've lost like 4, 5, and 6 with the Patriot Act, and rights seem to be dwindling by the day. But what's been going on with Julian is just outrageous. And how anybody could sit and watch whatever happened at that correspondence dinner the other night and listen to Joe Biden stand there and say, simultaneously treating Julian Assange like a criminal is very, very telling. So I think that it's so important. I appreciate all of you that come out for this. It's so important. Thank you for letting me interlope on your DC action. And I really look forward to working with any of you in the future. So thank you guys for having me here.
I want to announce our thing.
Now you don't even have to. Should I introduce you? Yeah. No, I'll that.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Murphy. I am splitting my time between the Assange Defense Boston group and the DC Action for Assange.
Closer.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm Suzanne. Do you want me to repeat that? Okay, so I'm Suzanne Murphy. I share my time working for the release of Julian Assange in the Boston Assange Defense Group, and my second home is here at the beloved DC Action group for Assange. So I want to welcome those of you who showed up today. I know it's a little blustery. Jen did not bring the warm weather.
And I didn't bring my jacket.
Or a jacket. So disappointing. I want to welcome, he's not here, but I'm going to welcome him anyway, our newest and most high visibility supporter, and that is RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So if you're listening to this, or if you get a chance to listen to this, RFK, thank you. Just in time, right? The fire engines. So I'm going to read to you from his Twitter thread exactly what he said, and so I can't be accused of disinformation, misinformation, or somehow messing this up. So straight from Robert F. Kennedy's Twitter feed. Instead of championing free speech, the U.S. actively persecutes journalists and whistleblowers. I'll pardon brave truth tellers like Julian Assange and investigate the corruption crimes they exposed. This isn't the Soviet Union. The America I love doesn't imprison dissidents. He went on to say, other brave truth tellers, including John Kiriakou, Chelsea Manning, Reality Winner, Daniel Hale, Thomas Drake, Jeffrey Sterling, and Edward Snowden, they were trying to return America to its democratic and humanitarian ideals. And that's hitting it out of the park for me, because that's the bottom line. So, and we're waiting for our additional speakers, but what I will tell you, hailing from Massachusetts and from Kennedy country, and having grown up in a family like we had JFK's picture hanging in our kitchen, one of my first field trips was to Plymouth Rock, and we were told that's where the Pilgrims landed because they were escaping persecution and oppression, and having suffered much of what we see creeping here in terms of speaking the truth to power in England. So when RFK talks about getting back to our roots and the ideals that founded this country, I can't tell you how much that resonates with me being a Bay Stater. That is why I am fighting for Julian Assange. I'm fighting for our First Amendment rights. I'm fighting for all the things that keep this fragile democracy going. And I want to thank you for showing up today.
Why don't we have Diane now and keep presenting? Let's
Okay.
have
So we're going to have Diane Sayre. She is with the, she is a candidate actually for Senate in New York. And I don't know the district, but if you can come on up, you can tell us a little bit more about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. It's U.S. Senate, so it's statewide. I'm running as an independent candidate for the seat currently held by Kirsten Gillibrand. And I'm sure people here have heard of the assassination attempt against President Putin, which occurred overnight, which definitely puts us a giant step closer to thermonuclear annihilation. Why did Julian Assange choose to publicly release the 2007 classified video footage of an Apache helicopter opening fire on a group of people in Iraq, killing 2 Reuters employees? Why did he choose to release countless thousands of pages of classified material and videos showing hideous crimes, mass murder, election theft, other crimes? Because Julian Assange believed that people are good, that if people were provided with the evidence of these crimes, that they would take action to demand justice. I also believe that people are good, and I come from an association, that of LaRouche, which had publications shut down, 400 armored FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, armored vehicle carriers, and jail sentences of my associates from 3 years to 77 years. And the media said LaRouche was a bad person, so no one except Ramsey Clark decided to find out what was going on in the case. I believe the reason why good people are not acting is because of fear. They're afraid of being called names. They're afraid of guilt by association. They're afraid of personal harm or even being killed. But I think right now, and especially given what happened yesterday at the Kremlin, we have to consider what is worse. Losing your own life, your own job, your reputation, things that you hold dear, or losing all of civilization, everything mankind has ever created, because of an act of thermonuclear Armageddon. must not be afraid to face who we are and what we should be, and to challenge our fellow Americans. And we should ask people, what are you trying to protect? Your currently miserable short life, so your children can have a shorter, more miserable life, because that's the direction our nation is going? Or are you willing to sacrifice it all? Are you willing to take a risk to ensure that your children and grandchildren have a future that is better than yours? Is it worth risking everything to ensure that your grandchildren get to know Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, Confucius, Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, Joan of Arc, Martin Luther King, and Beethoven? That's what Julian Assange was and is risking his life for. This is what we have to challenge our fellow Americans to take a risk for, because if we don't act now, we risk losing everything. And that's why all of us are here. And I would urge all of us to join Jose Vega, Medea Benjamin, and everyone here probably has done so, in raising your voice in places where you are not supposed to, in meetings of your congressmen, of the press, of academia. We have to take a resolve that we are not going to allow anyone, anywhere, to tell lies in public. If we see that going on, we have an obligation to speak up, and the more so because we do truly face the danger of thermonuclear war at this time. Assange was trying to provoke people into action so that the people running the governments of the UK, the United States, the NATO countries would not get to the point which we have arrived at. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Are we ready to? Okay. I'm gonna have you do it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's meet briefly Ruslan, who's a Ukrainian journalist who was at our April 11th action and is interested in briefly sharing his story about the threats he's under in Ukraine.
I'm Ukrainian journalist Ruslan Katsaba. I am a Ukrainian prisoner of conscience, a Ukrainian anti-militarist, and a Ukrainian journalist. In my homeland, Ukraine, where there is currently a war, I am often called the Ukrainian Assange. I want to convey to you greetings from all Ukrainian anti-war activists and independent opposition journalists. In my country, the corrupt authorities wanted to sentence me to 13 and a half years in prison. So I understand Julian Assange better than anyone who is currently sitting in a prison for speaking the truth. I believe that only we join a force, we peaceful people will be able to prove to all humanity that war is a crime against humanity, that war is a crime against civilization. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to fill out the legalities, he has an extradition hearing or a detention hearing, and he might be sent back to Ukraine. So we want to wish him all the best if he does have to go back.
Thank you. Okay, we have our next speaker, Nick Brana. He's with MPP, People's Party, and also organizer of Raising and Democracy. Nick?
All right, thank you, Suzanne. I don't know who was here for the last event right here, but I hope it's exciting, but not that exciting. It's good to see everybody here. Thank you so much to everybody who organized this. You know, just a few days ago, all the biggest journalists in the country gathered at a swanky hotel right here in this city to celebrate press freedoms and liberties in this country with Joe Biden, and to celebrate the very man who has put Julian Assange, locked him away for a decade in the Ecuadorian embassy, years afterwards in Belmarsh, maximum security prison. Not one mention of his name. Not one mention of the hypocrisy of having that celebration to honor the man who has the symbol of press freedom of our time in prison, in a maximum security prison, where he can't see his family almost never, and is essentially in conditions that the UN has described as torture. And maybe a few weeks before that, the same regime that has imprisoned that man held a democracy summit. A democracy summit, and I spoke at a CPI event right here in Washington, D.C. that was a rebuttal, summit against hypocrisy, to that event. And when I did that, in researching, reading about the Democracy Summit, which is, of course, a U.S. attempt to extend its imperial hegemony, continue it around the world, impose it on the rest of the world, continue to do so. One of the pillars of that the U.S. was chiding the supposed authoritarian rest of the world for, by which it means Russia and China, which it's already in a war with Russia, a world war that it started in Ukraine, and it's looking to now start a war with China because that isn't enough. And one of the pillars of that event was protecting journalism. Another pillar, ironically, was ending corruption, tackling corruption. I can't think of a less qualified country to speak of that than the United States.
Hypocrisy Summit.
It was really the Hypocrisy Summit, that's right. And that was the name of the rebuttal event. So it's great to be here with all of you. Another event that comes to mind recently is this guy right here, who is an amazing force in and of himself of the anti-war movement. He and the LaRouche movement. Really, please give them a round of applause for all of the interventions they've done. I think Jose's videos, just one person, really exemplifies, and of course with Anastasia and Kynan and Diane and everybody else who's participated in it. But your courage, brother, exemplifies what one person can do. Just the difference that one person can do. You know, you told me that your videos, your intervention videos, the last of which I'm sure everybody here saw, was against a number of the leading journalists and editors in the country. New York Times, I think Washington Post, AP, right? Reuters. And they sit there and they defend the persecution. Now the New York Times is coming around. Maybe they realize that, hey, if Julian Assange is persecuted in this way, we're next. They're realizing. But they sit there and they defend the violation of press freedoms. They defend wars endlessly. And then they chastise people like Jose who call them out for it. But more of us, I think, need to do what Jose has really started. Now, I did one against Bernie, but that's nothing compared to what Jose and those at the Schiller Institute have done. And that's the courage that I think we need to show at this time. We don't need hundreds of thousands of people. Of course, we want to build up to that, and we should build up to that. But if each of us can do what Jose has been doing, if each of us can go to events, can find these people, can confront them directly, then we will have a tremendous impact. We've seen the impact that it can have tens of millions of people, translate into languages around the world, and that's what it's going to take to free Julian Assange. Thanks a lot for having me. Thanks a lot for holding this and organizing it. Look forward to marching with you all.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, so we're going to move on now and go up Pennsylvania and then over to 14th.
Turn right on 14.
Turn right on 14th, and we're going to continue this in front of the National Press Office, National Press Club. Okay, so we'll see you there.
Well, stay together. We have
Please stay together and so we can keep our signage. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the police are going to escort us. So let's start with the banners and the coffin. This is a funeral for press freedom. We know the death of press freedom is what we're talking about. So we'll go out in this lane, and the DC police are going to escort us to the press club. And don't leave anything valuable behind. Just take your backpacks and things, and let's process up to the press club.
Off we march.
also some.
Go give Nick my thanks.
He follows me to the camera. Let's take over, except when it goes. Well, then I was I don't like it.
I'm Brian.
I don't like it.
I'm living here now. Yeah.
I'm trying.
I'm on contract.
Oh, sure.
Get up behind the banners.
It's gonna go on the street or on the sidewalk? Jose, when do we start block traffic? I heard a rumor there's gonna be big traffic jam.
That's right. This is us. But we know each other from the internet. Assange! Now! Free Assange! Now! Free Assange! Now!
What do we want?
Free
When do we want it? What do we want?
Free Assange!
When do we want it? What do we want?
Free Assange!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Free Assange!
When do we not want it?
Now!
You don't know this is a city building.
Areas of the world that use them like freedom of the press or whatever. And of course, the U.S. is like,
before it's too late. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let Assange out his prison door. 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, before it's too late.
Did you ad-lib that? Very nice.
That rhymes.
You gotta walk at least 2 miles to get there.
Yeah.
F-up, F-up.
So, get over 1 lane, so you guys not the left lane. There's no for 1 lane.
It's coming from
The truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been switching between that and taps.
What a great idea.
Yeah, it did add that the funeral element.
Oh man, I wish we had a live one.
Join them down there so they can get.
She's kind of in charge of whatever she wants.
Okay, so we survived. Is this on? Testing? Okay. Everybody can hear me? All right, so we survived the march. Thank you, James, for the bagpipes over there. This is the death of our Free Press March and recognition of World Press Freedom Day. And we are standing now in front of the National Press Building, hoping that maybe they're peeking out their windows, have external mics on the sidewalk, maybe they'll hear us. If not, we brought along our very enthusiastic next speaker, Jose Vega. And Jose, if you don't know who Jose is, then you must not have any social media presence whatsoever. And have not seen anything on YouTube. Jose he's basically, as far as I'm concerned, the top level, right up there with Medea, okay? Because those two have been tossed more than a Caesar salad. And Jose does interventionist activism. So without much further ado, Jose Vega.
Perfect, thank you. First, I just want to give a special shout out to Medea Benjamin because she had just gotten thrown herself out of an event with Anthony Blinken about an hour ago or so, where she went up there and said, you can't talk about freedom of speech and free press if you don't talk about Julian Assange, to which she was promptly taken off the stage, and Anthony Blinken said, well, that's free speech in action there. And I guess he's right, and then he just continued on with his script and completely ignored what she had to say. Now, I want to take this from the standpoint of something that I think is above us all. We're here united, no matter what our political bands may be, no matter what our organizations are, no matter who we are, what we believe, we're all united against injustice. And it's an irony that injustice has to be what unites us all, despite our differences. And under better circumstances, it should be other things too, like the general welfare and the promotion of the general welfare. But as stated in the Declaration of Independence, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to abolish it and destroy it. And that is the kind of action that I wish to see from everyone else. People have seen my interventions around the world and internationally. Just recently, I had confronted some of the biggest wigs of the New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, and Reuters, and Jonathan Capehart of MSNBC. And this intervention has been viewed around the world and translated in, from what I've seen, like German, Swedish, Spanish, French, Italian, Russian, and Chinese. I have international people messaging me and telling me that they're happy that somebody in the United States is standing up. And then I have my friends here in the United States also messaging me saying, well, I wish I could do what you do, but I'm too scared to do it. And I'm here to say it is your constitutional right and your duty to stand up and speak truth to power, just as much as I do it and just as Julian Assange has done it and is continuing to do it. And I want to give a special shout out to Nick Brana and Angela McArdle. Okay, Nick Brana is part of the People's Party, and he was able to get a broad coalition of people from all around all different ideological spectrums to come together against injustice, against this disastrous proxy war in Ukraine. I don't know anybody else who's been able to do that, but that is a modern day American revolution, as stated in the beginning. Yes, yes. Special shout out to Nick here. You know, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for people to dissolve the political bands that unite them. And all of us right now, no matter where we are from, no matter who or what we believe, at the end of the day, we're American citizens first. And our government has been hijacked by tyrannical forces that have censored many people and have put Julian Assange in prison and others in prison. And so now it is the right and the responsibility for the people to take back their government, to put aside what they might believe is the best direction for government and address the injustice and the abuse, because your government does not represent you anymore. And it hasn't. For the last 40 years, you've had a hijacked government that doesn't care about you, that spies on you, that throws you in jail, and does everything it can to silence dissidents. But you have the greatest tool of them all, and that is the truth. It is the most powerful thing on this planet. I remember there is a drawing of that Francisco Goya made. And people can look this up, and he captioned it. It's a woman who's lying dead on the ground, and his caption was, "Truth has died." And then the next caption and the next drawing is people looking at this woman who is resting there with her eyes closed, and the caption is, "Will she be revived?" And so that was at a time when there was tyrannical forces in Spain. But now that same question has to be asked here in the United States. Will she be revived? Will the truth be revived? But that's only a question that the citizens of this country can answer. No politician can answer that anymore. The citizenry has to be the vessel for truth to be revived. Even if in that instant, even in the 2 seconds when you stand up and you break the social contract of having to stay quiet, and you stand up and you call out the oppressors and the authoritarians, the people who demand to be taken seriously, and you ridicule them and you show them for what they really are, that is speaking truth to power. And for that moment, truth does get revived. And so I'm here to say thank you, first of all, to all of you who have supported me. But it's your turn now to stand up. And whether this is for now, against this stupid proxy war to save Julian Assange, or 1,000 years from now, to whoever might be going against some kind of injustice and is looking for the courage to stand up against the injustice, no matter what the circumstances may be, trust yourself, trust your gut, and stand up. Because right now, this is a message to the future also. Stand up for what's true, because every generation will need somebody to defend the truth, and that will always be true. And I'm proud to say that I know for a fact that there will always be truth tellers. So to the future truth tellers, I say keep going, keep at it, stay strong, and thank you all. Free Julian Assange. I get to keep going? Is that what?
So much, Jose. It was hard to recognize you because you weren't being tossed out. So, you really are a person who puts the verb into activist. So, thank you so much. Our next speaker, Brian, is Brian Fischer. Okay, and he's with DC Action for Assange. Brian, please come on up.
Everybody, so I had a speech prepared, and I'll get to that, but I'll talk a little bit what happened this morning, which was very unexpected. So we're about to head after this to the Washington Post, I believe, and they had an event this morning, for World Press Day and World Press Freedom Day, and I was there. And one thing they didn't talk about was any of the problems with freedom of speech and freedom of press in the United States, and really focused on other countries. And then you would think at a building like the Washington Post, they would be all for free press and freedom of speech, but I kind of found out that that wasn't what happened. So Secretary Blinken had a speech there, and Vega and other people went up and they interrupted the speech, and as you would expect, they were escorted off. I was there and very peacefully was in the front row with a small sign about just the size of a piece of paper that just said free Assange. I sat there peacefully the entire time. Didn't say a word, didn't stand up, nothing. Once Secretary Blinken was done and walked off stage, 2 Washington Post security officers came up to me and said, I have been disrupted. I was sitting there with a small sign, not saying anything. They said I would be charged of trespassing if I were not to come with them and leave. So I decided to leave. As I was leaving, they grabbed my small piece of paper that just said free Assange on it. They grabbed me and I asked them, why, and the one guy was just like, I'm just doing my job. And he was wrong, and it seemed like as I talked to him that he was starting to understand like the problem that was occurring here. Because I asked him, if I had a t-shirt, is that okay? I had a t-shirt that says free Assange on it. And he started to come around, but the other guy was kind of older, and he was just like very upset that I would sit there peacefully with a free Assange sign. And you would think in a place like the Washington Post that would not happen. But unfortunately, in this day and time, that's what's occurring. I guess I'll go ahead and read the speech I had prepared for today. And it's just a little bit about Julian Assange and kind of how, even though in this kind of like group here, and a lot of people that might view these videos online, people are very aware of Assange, I've come to realize that a lot of people still are not. A lot of people that I talk to don't know who he is, or they've been propagandized with different false things about him. So my speech today is a little bit just about the basics of Assange. So today is World Press Freedom Day, and it's unfortunate that right here in the United States, the press is under a constant attack, and the First Amendment is not being upheld by our politicians, government, and officials. We all have a natural right to be able to talk and express our views so we can grow and learn. Unfortunately, in 2023, people are being threatened and imprisoned for simply publishing and sharing truthful documents and information. Julian Assange has not received a lot of media attention, and many in the United States either don't know much about him, or they've been propagandized with incorrect information about him. The facts are simple. Julian Assange is an Australian citizen with a news outlet located in Iceland called WikiLeaks. Julian Assange is a journalist and a publisher. Like any journalist, he receives information from various sources. Some of those sources have information that is considered classified or is not available to the public. However, Assange is simply a journalist who is publishing truthful documents and information that he receives from sources, and this is literally the job of a journalist. The United States is trying to extradite Assange from Belmarsh prison in England and prosecute him under the Espionage Act, even though he is not a United States citizen, has never been based in the United States, and has done nothing in violation of the First Amendment, as he is a journalist publishing leaked and classified information that is claimed from other sources. One of the keys to a functioning society is being able to share ideas and truthful information. We're in a time when this key foundation is starting to be attacked, and it's important for everyone to simply spread this truthful and important information that journalists provide. Take a moment to go to wikileaks.org to see the important information they publish and come to your own conclusions. Assange is unaware of other journalists that are under attack for simply trying to provide the public with truthful information so that individuals can use critical thinking skills and common sense to make their own decisions. In recent months, the journalist Matt Taibbi has also called me under fire for doing a stand-up job as a journalist by reporting truthful information to the public about what the government is doing and how the government is working to influence private companies and sensitive information and conversations people are having on social media. To add to this attack by the government of free speech and press, just last week, the Department of Justice indicted 4 United States citizens on conspiracy charges simply because they spoke and published viewpoints that did not align with the government's viewpoints. These 4 individuals were with the African People's Socialist Party, the APSP. We are reaching a breaking point where the U.S. government is starting to arrest its own citizens simply for sharing or expressing views that don't align exactly with the government or administration's views or agenda. What can we now do? We can let our friends and neighbors know. We can bring these issues up to our government officials. We can choose to only vote for those who actually support free speech and freedom of the press. We can write, protest, talk, turn the radio stations, and continue to raise the
thoughtful speech. And I just want to say that Brian Fischer has been a loyal vigiler outside Merrick Garland's home. We go twice a month with huge banners that say Merrick Garland, free Assange, and Brian and Martha are there almost every time, and we really appreciate your dedication and your intervention with Secretary Blinken. So thank you. We're really glad that Lucy Murphy, the songstress of DC, has joined us. So maybe when we do go to our next stop, we'll get a song or a chant. Next is Kathy Boylan. And Kathy's just going to give a short statement from the Dorothy Day Catholic Worker.
Hi, I'm with the Dorothy Day Catholic Worker, and our tradition, you know, Dorothy Day refused to pay federal taxes. Why? Because our money is being used to fund all of the wars and to torture all the crimes against humanity that Julian Assange told us about. That's why we're here. Unfortunately, we have paid for all of the crimes that Julian told us about. So I invite you to remember the tradition of Dorothy Day. I know it's scary, but you could contact the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee and find out how you might take steps into war tax resistance. Thank you very much. And my famous chant, let's do it one more time. What do we want? Freedom. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Freedom. When do we want it? Now. And here's Susan Murphy from DC Action for Julian Assange. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Isn't she awesome? Complete face right there. Okay, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity once again, because it bears repeating, to quote Robert F. Kennedy, who has conspicuously come out in support of Julian Assange, whistleblowers, and those who would do anything to oppress our free speech and First Amendment rights. So in case, I don't know, in case the National Press Club missed this, and I'm going to just quote directly what he said, so I'm not, again, accused of misinformation. Robert F. Kennedy said, instead of championing free speech, the U.S. actively persecutes journalists and whistleblowers. I'll pardon brave truth-tellers like Julian Assange and investigate the corruption and crimes they exposed. This isn't the Soviet Union. The America I love doesn't imprison its dissidents. He went on to say, other brave truth-tellers, including John Kiriakou, Chelsea Manning, reality winner Daniel Hale, Thomas Drake, Jeffrey Sterling, and Edward Snowden. They were trying to return America to its democratic and humanitarian ideals. So thank you, RFK, for standing with Julian Assange and all of the truthsayers. I want to welcome Medea Benjamin. She just had apparently a recent brush up with those who do not like truth, and she will be speaking at our next stop as we move on to the Washington Post offices. So keep following us. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you there. Bye.
Okay, so let's go out to the street again, and we're going to go up to 14th and K to the offices who are watching the post. And maybe we can get a chant or a song along the way.
develop yourself?
Not anymore. I don't have enough volume to do this, but...
That's funny, I just called them out.
She's horrible. She's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
like now it's opening up again. You know, amazing ones. Like it's like
Yeah, they were actually fun. They were doing.
No, it's
No more self-censorship!
Unless somebody else is going to say something. No, Massachusetts. But I'm definitely allowed. So you never let
be good.
Yeah, you know, I didn't calculate so much. I thought that I could really Lincoln.
No, it's all good. I'm just trying to educate people.
Here's like the lone journalist.
Motivate and we're trying to get it right out of them. I'm trying to revolution. I'm sick of it. I do too. I do too with my kids. Ask Susanna. It's perfect. I think it's you gotta cheer for Medina.
I mean, who really reads the law? Your lines to press. What are you gonna do?
Very appropriate to lay it here.
Oh yeah. We'll share the space. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Where's the keyword?
Did we make it? Did you lose anybody?
Freedom for Assange!
Freedom for Assange! Freedom for Assange! Freedom for Assange! Freedom for Assange! Freedom for Assange!
I'm going to introduce our next speaker, actually vocalist. DC's favorite vocalist, Casey Murphy.
Yay! Free Assange!
Free Assange!
Thank you, cousin.
Freedom for Assange! We shall not be moved! Freedom for Assange! We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Freedom for Assange! Freedom for Assange! We shall not be moved. Freedom for Assange! We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. Libera Assange, no nos moverán. Libera Assange, no nos moverán como un árbol firme junto al río. No nos moverán. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved.
No way.
We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Remember, Shari, we shall not be moved. Remember, Shari, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. People are united. The people are united. We shall not be moved. The people are united. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
Bring that special something to these activist events. Okay, so our next speaker really doesn't need any introduction, but I'll give her a brief one. This is our next speaker will be Medea Benjamin with World Police. Yeah, that's it. I don't really think we need
Free Assange!
Free Assange! Free Assange!
Free Assange!
Free Assange!
Free Assange!
So today's a very, very significant day because it is
Free Assange Day?
World Press Freedom Day.
Just that.
Yeah, but it should also be the Free Assange Day, shouldn't it? So Ty Barry and I were here earlier this morning where they had an event to honor journalists who are under attack all over the world. And it is important to pay tribute to all the journalists who've been killed, who've been held, who've been imprisoned. And there are unfortunately all too many of them around the world. But you would think on the day that the U.S. is calling for freedom for journalists around the world, it might occur to them to reevaluate the extradition charges against Julian Assange, right? It might occur to them that maybe we look a little hypocritical if we are calling for journalists to be freed in all other circumstances, but not Julian Assange, right? Well, it certainly is very hypocritical because as long as the U.S. continues to pursue Julian Assange, it has no credibility when it advocates for journalists in other places around the world, right?
Hypocrites! Big hypocrites.
I want to see journalists freed everywhere.
Yes.
But in this morning, they talked about Russian journalists who should be freed. They talked about journalists from Belarus who should be freed. They talked about journalists from China who should be freed. But they didn't talk about Julian Assange. They didn't mention the fact that he has been languishing under poor health, in poor conditions, in a top security prison in London. That didn't come up. They didn't talk about how they have been pursuing him for over a decade now. That didn't come up. It didn't come up that perhaps what Biden said at the White House Press Association, and some of you have that on your placard right now, journalism is not a crime, what Joe Biden said, right? Wouldn't it occur to them it's a little hypocritical to say that when Julian Assange is in prison precisely for the crime of journalism?
Yes. That's right.
Wouldn't it seem a little hypocritical when Julian Assange is in prison because he exposed the truth about U.S. war crimes and atrocities committed in Iraq and Afghanistan? Wouldn't you think it's a little hypocritical? And as part of those war crimes, perhaps what Julian Assange is best known for is the video collateral damage in which U.S. cold-bloodedly murdered 2 journalists that work with Reuters, right?
Right.
And when a car came up in a van to try to help them, they were murdered as well.
Yes, that's right.
And this horrific scene we only saw because of Chelsea Manning. Yay! And because of Julian Assange. Yay! Because the military lied and said it was a firefight. The military lied and said there wasn't video footage. The military lied over and over and over and over again. And so the only way that we can get the truth is if there are whistleblowers, and then there are publishers who will publish what the whistleblowers expose. And we, the American people, deserve to know the truth about the activities of our government when it's engaged in an illegal, immoral war like the war in Iraq, like the war in Afghanistan, like the war in Libya, and elsewhere around the world, right?
Right.
And the Washington Post should be our friends in this, shouldn't they?
That's right.
They should be in favor of any journalist who exposes wrongdoing, shouldn't they?
Yes.
They should be publishing what Julian Assange put out, right?
Yes.
And yet, Washington Post today doesn't even want to publish the truth about what's happening in Ukraine. They want to paint simply a rosy picture that Ukraine is winning, and if we throw in more weapons, Ukraine will be able to be victorious, right? And they don't even recognize the leaks of the Pentagon papers, the new leaks we have that say this is a stalemate, this is not a winnable war. So why doesn't the Washington Post come out with an editorial saying we don't want to see more people dying in Ukraine, and so we should support a peace plan, anybody's peace plan, like the Chinese peace plan. But we don't hear that. And in fact, when Anthony Blinken was asked about it here today, this morning, what did he say, Carol, about the Chinese peace plan?
We would like to do something with China. We'll link the 2 words together that they're using. It has to be one that's going to last.
So basically, doing what he has done before, which is saying, well, this is not really a peace plan. And as we asked Blinken himself at a congressional hearing before getting arrested, we said, if you don't like the Chinese peace plan, where is your peace plan? So these are all connected. Whistleblowers, leakers, journalists, publishers, all connected. And so it's so important that we are here today, as people are doing around the world, calling on World Press Freedom Day, that the most well-known, the number one known in this world, journalist, publisher, who is behind bars for telling the truth is
Julian Assange!
And we demand
freedom!
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Okay, this morning, I'm just very briefly. This morning, they just talked about Khashoggi for like very briefly, like 30 seconds, not even. They showed a quick video. And then these guys from the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post were patting themselves on the back how they're going to free this guy and that the government in Russia will be made to pay a price for this guy that's in jail there. I'm appalled that these guys were not saying we're going to make MBS in Saudi Arabia, even though they put it on their board. The Washington Post can't even protect its own reporters. The Washington Post.
Good point.
Thank you, Medea and Tig. It's really hard. Medea's a hard act to follow, but we're going to try to have a couple more speakers. I'm Ann Wilcox with DC Action for Assange. And I'd like to take this moment to thank Martha and Mary Mesnick and Julie and everybody who helped, Suzanne, who made this such a great action. I think it was a lot of fun, and I think we got our message out. I wanted to also mention there's some other Assange Defense World Press Freedom Day events today. In New York, they're going to go to the offices of MSNBC, and Chris Hedges is going to be one of the speakers there. They'll have an action at MSNBC. There's a die-in LA later on today in front of the press offices. And in Chicago, there's going to be a webinar that you all can watch. It's online at the Assange Defense website with Kevin Gostelow. And Kevin's written a new book called Guilty of Journalism. And he will be in the DC area in June for a press book talk. So we'll be sure everyone knows about that. It's going to be at Best Boys in June. So since all of us are here talking about empire and so forth, I wanted to invite Leo Flores, who helped hold down the Venezuela embassy about 3 years ago, and ask Leo to describe Juan Guaido's talk this morning and anything we can learn from that.
Thanks so much, Ann. So, for folks who don't know, Juan Guaido, the so-called interim president of Venezuela, who's imposed by the Trump administration, he's in town in D.C. this week being lauded by the foreign policy establishment. He was at the Wilson Center, and a bunch of us, including Lucy and Ty and Medea, managed to interrupt them before we were, very violently expelled from this think tank that supposedly is all about diplomacy and peace, but of course is really about empire and furthering U.S. Geopolitical goals. And there's an important connection between Assange and Venezuela, and that's that WikiLeaks, published all of these embassy cables in which we can see guys like Ambassador Brownfield, who spoke at this morning's event, talk about the plan they had in place to overthrow the Chavez government and how they were going to undermine the Bolivarian Revolution in Venezuela. And they laid it out, exactly what they've been doing over the last 5 to 10 years. And had it not been for Assange and WikiLeaks, we wouldn't know those details, right? And at this point, it's not even a double standard that the U.S. engages in, because it's gone so far beyond that. We're talking about like a quadruple, quintuple standard. The United States is so far removed from practicing the ideals that it preaches, whether it's freedom of the press, whether it's democracy or human rights. We've seen time and time again, and thank you to Julian Assange and the other warriors of truth who have exposed the United States. What we've seen time and time again is how the United States instrumentalizes these issues of democracy and human rights to further its goals in incredibly violent ways. And Assange is in jail because he told the truth. And he's become under the thumb of the U.S. government, just like so many others, whether it's Leonard Peltier, Mumia Abu-Jamal, or Alex Saab, or so many more political prisoners. And it's time to free Assange, and that's why I'm so glad to be able to speak to you in front of you all today. Free Assange!
Free Assange! Free Assange!
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker we're going to bring back is Jose Vega. Jose, come on up here. Not a interventionist presentation, but he has very great things to say about Julian Assange and our people.
Well, thank you again for inviting me to speak, and I guess since I got a second round at this, I have to make it a little different. And I guess what I'd want to leave all of you with is a tool and a method of thinking in our fight against injustice and in our fight to free Assange. The great poet Dante Alighieri opens his Inferno with the words, "Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself astray, alone in a dark wood, for the straight and narrow path had been lost. And like all of us, like our country, for the last 40 years we've been in a dark wood. But I'm happy to say that all of us are guiding out, fighting our way through the layers of hell, helping and using each other as allies in our fight against that. And so hopefully we'll be able to crawl out and attempt to get close to what is something that is achievable close to paradise. And so to end this off, I want to end with this idea. When you wave your hand like this, you affect every particle in your area, and then that particle bounces off another particle, which then at some point in the world will affect every particle around the earth forever. It's like a still water. When you put your finger in still water, you create ripples and ripple effects, right? And so scientists would often debate and figure out, where can you find the origin of this ripple? Where can you find the origin of this motion? But just the very fact that you get up and walk, just the very fact that you move your hands, you already cause a change so minuscule, so small, that you do change the world. And that means that inaction is also a choice. And that means your inaction does nothing. But in talking about motion and in talking about moving, did we not talk about the fact that your words also have a power? Because your words are an impress upon the air. And the words are so powerful that they want to throw you in jail for it, as we've seen with Julian Assange, right? And so in the tradition of Julian and Assange, and in the tradition of the power of words, speak the truth fearlessly. Speak the truth with power. Because when you do so, you become the vessel for truth. No matter who you are, no matter how imperfect you may be, when you speak the truth, you become more than yourself. You become above yourself. You become something greater. And that is true for all of us. That is what's beautiful about being a human being, is the ability to fight for what's beautiful. Because as Keats says, truth is beauty, and beauty is truth, and that's all ye need know. And so with that, thank you. Let's work together to free Assange.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, so we're concluding here. My final words to the Washington Post office: protect your journalists. Perhaps get a few more actual journalists, and kindly do not help, aid, and abet in any way the criminalization of truth. Because the American people, the world is watching. You may be in your ivy towers, but look out the windows. Listen, pay attention, because we are not going away. Truth will not be criminalized. The public, those who want freedom, will have the last say on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's bring the coffins and the...
Where's the truck?
How about you take a picture of here?
In front of the post?
Well, we
want
to get a
picture of the truck too.
Okay.
Okay, let's do
We can do both?
We can do both, yeah, okay.
Sure. That's...
Okay, we'll do a picture here and then we'll do another one.
We're taking a quick picture.
Yeah, quick picture, everybody. All right, guys, Mr. Banner, come
Duly
over up front.
departed, we are watching our press freedom
The
go.
banner, picture Mr. Banner,
Every
come over up
minute
front.
of every day.
People, Mr. Banner, come up front.
Free Julian Assange! Don't let the press completely die.
All right. Group photo, group photo. Everybody get in.
Follow that guy. He's got the camera. He knows where to take a shot. Yeah, I guess this is close, so I can. Medea, turn around.
I got in. I have to take that photo. All right, you want to go with this? All right, everybody ready?
All right.
Don't leave the post. They turn the crew. So, all right, everyone. All right, everyone ready?
Smile. Look good.
Free Assange!
Say it. Say it.
That's a big one right here.
4 cameras.
Press freedom.
If this guy...
Free Julian.
They're going to get this guy...
Press freedom now.
Press freedom now.
Press
always follow photographers and they get right
You know
behind
where-
because they know where the shot is.
Know the
right?
angle. Yeah.
We got too many people. They're gonna block the message.
We're not going to block the message.
Everybody's got to get
censor it.
short. Don't censor the message. Tall people get short. Short people get shorter.
To level the banners at different heights. Yeah. So maybe low.
Yeah, make a crowd. I want to get the Assange part in there. No, it's not. It's dirty. They'll be mad.
Someone back here.
Everybody get behind the banner. Yeah, people can get over this way by the cab. I want to get the Assange part. I don't want to obscure the sign. You need to get in there.
Hey guys, come on, we're just gonna get a quick picture at the truck. Come on, Mary. Yeah, hold up the, and then take it away. Yeah, in the truck. In the front door.
You know it's bad when the UN gets involved.
Guys, we have to cap the shot. Move it. If you want to do the cap out, move it. Move it. He knows exactly.
And I can't wait till you go. Yeah. Have you tried putting it back in its package?
Oh, really?
No, you don't.
All right, everybody.
Go over to the side. That's it. Beautiful.
Free the press! Free the press! Free the press!
We could have a couple of people around Kathy.
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange!
If you
Free
would
Julian Assange!
I mean,
On World Press Freedom Day! Free Julian Assange!
Look towards Leo. You leave the banner. Just so we see Julian's name there. Okay.
All right, one more. Two more.
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange! All right, 3, 2, 1, Tina, are you in? All right.
Free Julian Assange!
3, 2, 1, and go!
On World Press Day! Free Julian Assange!
World Press Day.
Free Julian Assange!
On World Press Day.
Free Julian Assange!
On World Press Day.
Free Julian Assange!
2 more pictures. Yeah. All right.
This revolution.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3.
We'll have taken way more photographs than David.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Fischer, for streaming.